Alright, welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic Lesson Known Classics. This is episode number 3035, Doubleshot number 2929. We're reviewing the third and final trade for new Excalibur, known as Battle for Eternity. Yes, that is the serious name of this trade. Now, this basically covers issues 16 and 24 discussing each issue. The first two issues is mostly put a two-part focus on the character of Nocturna, the old-timely daughter of Nightcrawler and Scarlet Witch. It's basically about her trauma, basically dealing with being here, by LDH Zero by Chris Claremont. And then right after this two-part is really good two-parter, and then of course basically Claremont's like, you remember the Shadow X, the evil version of the X-Men from the Ultimate Universe? Yeah, he brings him back, and they fight him for a while, and then Abaddon, the leader of the team, he pretty much turns on them and basically proceeds to massacre the frickin' team throughout the entirety of the book, also forming his own separate group known as the Shadow Captains, was comprised of himself, Lionheart, who actually served in the Avengers for the Kurt Busiek run for the book. Actually, no, I think she's here when Jeff Johns was in the book, yes. But by the end of the book, Juggernaut basically the team and basically takes part in World War Hulk. Despite the fact the final issue of this book came out after World War Hulk X-Men, which of course that was later deemed not canon for reasons. Yeah, I don't really get of exactly why in the world they did this for, but they did. It is by far one of the most weirdest things, and apparently this issue takes place during the events of World Hulk X number 2. Yes. By the way, the book is about Christos Gage. And right after this, Juggernaut's not seen again for over a year until he pops up in X-Men Legacy. Yeah. That's pretty much kind of what he was doing. It's kind of weird, the fact that basically, like, oh yeah, also he gets a fight with Scar, son of Hulk, becomes Captain Universe, was a little Spider-Man stuff, joins Thunderbolts, he loses power briefly, and then he gets his power back. Then he disappears for a while. Oh yeah, that's kind of the weird thing about it. It's like, he disappears, like, he last appeared at the end of, I think it was like X-Men. It was the end of like Amazing X-Men, which came out in 2015. After that, he wasn't seeing him for 2 years until he popped the X-Men Blue as a recurring character, and he basically was pretty frequently in the X comics. He got his own miniseries for like Krakoa stuff, which was nice. And what is doing now? Well, currently he's back with the X-Men once again, and he's part of the Ryan Stegman X-Men group. A book that's been very mixedly received since it's been coming out. But as for the team itself, well, they will later appear in X-Men Die by Sword, which is a crossover miniseries with Exile, which I will discuss in the future, hopefully, for that one. But as for the team itself, after that miniseries wrapped up, New Excalibur pretty much disbanded. It was never seen ever. Yeah, they were never seen again. Nocturne basically decided to disappear from comics for a while. After that, she didn't appear again for several years until she popped up Exiles Volume 3. And after the book wrapped up, she popped up in a tie-in for Rise of, basically the finale for Koza, and that's been it for her. But as for the rest of the cast, like, what happened to the rest of the cast of New Excalibur? Well, after the events of Die by Sword, Captain Britain just decided to form, I kid you not, the very next year, they decided to launch the Captain Britain MI13 book. Yeah, like the very next year. Yeah, he became an agent MI13, like right after this book wrapped up. And you're like, really? Yeah, really. He became part of MI13 for a while, and then he basically popped up in Kenny X-Force. He appeared very much a lot. He had a lot of screen time, even after this book wrapped up. Became part of Secret Avengers. part of Revolutionary War stuff, which basically was just a love letter to Marvel UK. Those time runs out. Him and his wife eventually had a daughter. His wife later came back. Thanks to MI13. He currently is not. He's not currently Captain Britain anymore. He's currently Captain Avalon, where he's been still very really featured in comics. That's what they do. Like with the character. As for Dazzler, oh boy. So, right after this book wrapped up, she disappeared for a bit. Yeah, it's like, okay, so she didn't do much. Then she became part of the San Francisco X-Men, became part of Greg Pak's amazing Extreme X-Men book, became part of S.H.I.E.L.D. with this weird, ugly outfit that went bad this wrote the book for X-Men. She became part of A-Force. Yes, A-Force. She was very sporadic after that. And now she's currently got a book now. At one point she died, but she's back now. Sage, aka Tessa. What did she do after this? Well, she became part of the Extreme X-Men book for reasons. Yeah, like... Actually, no, she became part of New Exiles. And then she came back. Weird. And then came part of SWORD and Extreme X-Men, which was interesting. Then after the Extreme X-Men thing wrapped up, she just took part in X-Man, does some Krakoa stuff. Yeah, she didn't do very much after this. Not really. Pete Wisdom. A guy who was very much part of this group. He also became part of MI13, obviously. And he was heavily featured in that book. Pretty much in all 15 issues of this book. At one point, he became part of Gambit. And then at one point, he died. Came back. And then became part of the Excalibur book by Tina Howard. Yeah. And of course, also popped up in X-Force because of the MI13 stuff. But after Excalibur wrapped up, he later popped up in the short-lived Betsy by Captain Britain book. And that's been it for him. So, if you think about it, of all the characters featured in New Excalibur, all the main members, only Juggernaut, Captain Britain, actually pretty much anything when the book wrapped up. Everyone else didn't do jack frickin' squat. But what about Lionheart herself? The one who basically kind of forced became part of this book thanks to... Oh, she actually to a crazy Chuck also. That was Jeff Johns. My mistake. You probably think, okay, what happened to her after this book wrapped up? Did she ever did anything per se? Like, not really. She did jack frickin' squat. This is the last time she ever appeared in comics. And believe it or not, this issue came out, the final issue of this book, came out in 2007, which was 18 years ago. She has not been seen since then. But this is a good story overall, and not nice wrap up with the book, though it does lead into also with the Exiles. Like I said, I will be covering Exiles at some point, just not at the moment. So, final thoughts on New Excalibur. Really good book. I thoroughly enjoyed doing this book. Purely because basically it was the first Excalibur book that came out while I'm reading comics. One of only two. They gotta be in the Tina Howard book, which I pretty much bought a lot of the copies for that one. Yeah, believe it or not, I bought the entire series in trade paperback. Very short-lived run per se. It's actually shorter than the first volume for the series, which that was 125 issues. And as for Excalibur, well, that was like, this was 24 issues. Excalibur Teen Howard, that lasted for, I think it was like about 28 issues. That's a little bit longer, this one. As for why they brought this book back for Krakoa stuff, I don't know. It seems like quite odd they bring up all books Excalibur back. And especially since Chris Claremont had nothing to do with the book at all, per se. And that was going to be the fourth volume for the series. Yes, because the third volume had nothing to do with Excalibur. That was the pre-book review for this one. That book was also a Chris Claremont, and that was focused on the Genoshan Excalibur, which the book was really interesting, and then the book ended because of House of M. But, a lot of fun with this book. What's your place in this book? Iceman. Because there's about 3 volumes to cover him, not very much. Though I am going to cover the controversial Volume 3. Because, of course, that was the book done by Sonia Grace. As for what next after that? Probably Exiles. But next up is Omega Flight. Yes, the 5-issue miniseries. I thought I was going to cover, but I figured, though, why not? Released in well, the trade is called Alpha to Omega. This was a 5-issue miniseries that was released in 2007. Also collected Choosing Sides, which basically is just U.S. agents only fit with the fact he moved to frickin' Canada. And the writer of this book is interesting, to say the least. Now, if you're curious, who wrote Omega Flight? Omega Flight was also released under the Initiative banner. Okay, the book is written by Michael Avalon. Scott Nolan's was a good artist. I really enjoy his artwork. I love the covers here done by... Also, my favorite was basically basically on the cover of the first issue, which I'm going to show off here, he basically gave Talisman, who is the daughter of Shaman, he pretty much gave her a frickin' 6-pack. I'm not kidding about that. He gave her a frickin' 6-pack. Oh yeah, on the cover they featured Beta Ray Bill, but he's on the book. As for the writer himself, well, he didn't do much for Marvel. Okay, so he's on a couple books per se. He did. He was actually a placement for Thor. He replaced Dan Jurgens on the book, which was the disassembled issues. Yes, I kid you not. He wrote the disassembled issues. He wrote that stuff. Then he did Stormbreaker, the Saga Beta Ray Bill, an issue of Powers. He did Thor Blood Oath, the Ares miniseries that came out, I think it was in 06, I think it was. Yeah. It was a book that kind of led into stuff for Mighty Avengers. Then he did this book. He also did Spider-Man / Red Sonja, an A for Powers, and also the Chaos War Ares miniseries. Makes sense. He did the Actors miniseries. And that's been it for him. That last issue came roughly almost 15 years ago. And I've discussed some of this stuff. I've discussed his Thor book, which I thought was quite interesting. I have, of course, also did Spider-Man Sunday, which was a cross miniseries with Dynamite. So, Omega Flight. Now, despite Beta Ray Bill, like I said, being on the cover, he is not in the book. No, he's not. Not really. They also introduced this brand new Prime Minister who only appears as one issue. So, this new version of Omega Flight, which actually is a heroic version, is comprised of, well, U.S. Agent. Well, when Julie Carter to the book, basically, their daughter identifies her like, oh, this is Spider-Woman. And she's like, no, I'm Arcane now. Yeah, basically, she brings her teenage daughter with her to Canada. Despite the fact that a lot of time in comics, the fact that she's always in custody battle with her ex-husband over her own daughter. Yes, she constantly is fighting her own family for custody of her own daughter. That has been a recurring thing with her. I mean, she's a great mother. She loves her daughter. Yeah, she's a superhero, but she doesn't abandon her own freaking offspring. I mean, Rachel Carpenter is a good character. I think when she first showed up, she was a little girl. Now she's a teenager. And, of course, Julie Carpenter is no longer Arcane or even Spider-Woman. She's now Madam Web. She has been Madam Web since 2010. Yeah, that's something else that happened 15 years. So, basically, they bring all these characters together. Now, of course, also Arcane. Those of you who read the Spider-Man miniseries that feature Arena, you're probably noticing, that costume she's wearing is Arcane. Like, is that also the same costume that Spider-Girl wore when Arena became Spider-Girl? Yes. There's a reason for that, because Julie gave her that costume. So basically, the whole point of this book is basically just Omega Flight being assembled to stop basically people who avoid registration by fleeing to Canada. It's a border book. Yep. So, yeah, it is quite baffling why Scott Nolan's included Beta Ray Bill in the cover, despite the fact he does not appear in the book at all. He does not appear in any issues. Now, U.S. agent basically is not happy in here. He is... Now, who is leading this team, you might ask? Who is leading Omega Flight, you might ask? It's U.S. agent. Kind of, yes, but they never identify him as leader. Not really. So, they do bring in Beta... Okay, Beta is in the book, but he doesn't really... I don't remember him doing much anything in this book, which... He seems like a very strange addition to the book, but that's kind of what happened with him. So, here's the question. Why in the world did they pick Omega Flight as the name of the premier superhero team for Canada instead of, like, Omega Flight? Alpha Flight? Well, there's a reason for that. In story, the reason why they don't call themselves Alpha Flight is because Alpha Flight was killed by the collection. It's basically Michael Porter. He was a postman from Alaska who became possessed by, get this, apparently he got all the mutant powers that were stripped from the mutants by Scarlet Witch. They all went to him. He became this collective thing and basically just wiped out Alpha Flight with the exception of Sasquatch, which in the book they never really explain how the heck he survived being killed. He just hid. Eventually he is recruited to the team. So then Michael Porter himself is recruited to the team and becomes Guardian. He doesn't become Guardian until toward the end of the book. Talisman was actually against being part of the team because he murdered her father. Yep, that's pretty much the reason for it. Now, Talisman and Sasquatch are technically the only people connected to Alpha Flight. It's mostly put, if you look at it, 3 Americans and like 2 Canadians and an alien. That should land for this book. And mostly put, you find the Wrecking Crew. There's a little bit of stuff Alpha Flight, but a lot of the time they're fighting the Wrecking Crew throughout this whole book. And if you're wondering what happened to them, like, well, they are kind of in a way disbanded. Well, they disbanded them. Basically, Hickman decided just to disband them for reasons unexplained. Yeah, the opening issue has a fight. The Wrecking Crew, obviously. Now, Beta Ray Bill, who basically was Sam Walters. Yeah, and there's also this girl named Daisy, part of the group. This book, yeah. Daisy, who's this muscle woman who debuted in this book. She doesn't really do anything per se. She's here for the opening 2 issues and never seen again. Eventually, Guardian himself does join. He does join the group with issue number 2. That's when he virtually joins the group. Reluctantly. He himself doesn't want to join the team. Talisman is why I'm there because he murdered her father, so eventually he is accepted. And there's stuff with Turnuk. That's kind of what basically it is. And that's all they kind of do here. Basically just fight the Wrecking Crew. And you would think by the end of this book, oh, they might do something with the book. By the way, this book is, oh, no one coming home. Implying in the final issue, like, oh, like, somebody's gonna die. No, the Wrecking Crew are captured and basically sent back to the U.S. Yeah. But what happened to Alpha Flight after this book wrapped up? Well, Marvel decided to dump him in Markham Presents. Probably discuss this some other point, but not right now. But the book itself, if I remember, it was basically a book for Guardian, not for Omega Flight. because the book focused on Michael Porter, who became Weapon Omega. It was kind of like his book, and that's kind of what happened. He's called The Collective. He was a Bendis character. But the miniseries was really good. Also, the initiative, this was an aftermath thing, thanks to Civil War 1, which, that was a very divisive story at the time when it came out. Of course, I was not on the side of the pro-registration stuff, basically that I thought the registration stuff was kind of a dumb idea. Especially as the result was basically just the whole idea of this thing was just, all because of one explosion in Stamford, Connecticut, which results in death of kids, and the New Warriors are blamed for it, despite the fact that anybody reading the book can probably figure out, yeah, people are blaming the wrong people for this. Kind of sometimes happens in real life sometimes. You see, the person responsible for it was Nitro. And by the way, it's been 19 years since the story came out. And you probably think, has he ever been tried for the Stanford Massacre? The answer is no. It's like Marvel is not interested in trying the man who murdered 600 people with a fucking explosion. But of course, basically, Initiative. This was one of the few miniseries launched as part of the Initiative. So, the other books launched with the whole Initiative stuff was they launched New Heroes for Hire book, which got canceled after a year. A Mighty Avengers book, which has managed to last surprisingly for 3 years. Avengers Initiative, which actually was a really good book, by the way, which got canceled, got replaced with Avengers Academy, and then that got replaced with Infinity the Hunt, and then the organization got disbanded. Submariner got a miniseries. Kind of in a way, the whole Initiative banner itself was only around some books very briefly. This book, all 5 issues. Avengers Initiative only had the Initiative banner part of the as a logo for it for the first 3 issues, and then it became part of a tie-in for World War Hulk. Yes, seriously. Iron Man himself can be part of this too. Thor was loosely connected, but he basically, his little connection is, let's have Iron Man show up and then you should get the crap beat out of him. But it's almost like when you finish reading this book, it's like, okay, it's a quick mini-series. I'm actually quite surprised they decided to launch this as an ongoing at the time. I remember this book coming out, but I never knew exactly why this book never took off. It's not a terrible book per se. I thought the book was really good. It's a shame the writer doesn't do anything with Marvel anymore. Yep. But I'm going to give this miniseries, the trade paperback Alpha and Omega, a 9 out of 10. Yep. But next time, talk about this, this is going to place with, because I'm doing this next, it will be Alpha Flights Volume 4, so I can finally cap off the Alpha Flight stuff. So I can finally put that behind me as one of the few 100+ issue books left to go from Marvel, because here's the thing. The only 100+ issue left to go that has had over 100+ issues published that I'm pretty much almost done with is Alpha Flight, Punisher, X-Factor, and X-Force. And that's it, because those are the ones left, because everything else is pretty much done. Actually, there's one I want. Shield. 5 more. So, finishing New Excalibur does slow it down from 6 down to 5 more left to go. Well, actually, more like 7, actually. There was 7 because we got Markup Presents, obviously. So, about 7 overall. Could be more. But, when do I eventually replace Outflight with? When I can finish it up. After I review it, I think I might just go ahead and do Exiles, because I've been really curious to talk about this book because I read it. It was a really fun book when I read it. So I'll discuss it at that point. Yep. So yeah, this particular review, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications, and join the sync button. Well, I do have one more Comic Corner ready to go, and it's going to be interesting to talk about this one. Okay? The next video. Bye.